The forest was too quiet. Isla had learned that silence in the wilderness meant predators, but she was exhausted. 4 weeks of traveling between packs, trading healing services for scraps of food and a dry corner to sleep in. Her silver hair hung limp and tangled. Her porcelain skin was smudged with dirt. Her storm-gray eyes burned from sleeplessness. She should have stopped hours ago, but the nearest settlement was still a day away. Sleeping alone in the forest had never bothered her before. She'd been doing it since she was 16, since the raid that killed her parents and left her an orphan no pack wanted. Isla's appearance had always been the problem. Silver hair like moonlight, skin so pale it seemed translucent, eyes the color of winter storms. Not quite albino, but close enough that other wolves found her unsettling. An omen of bad luck. When her parents died defending their small pack, no one fought to keep their strange daughter. She'd been given a bag and pointed toward the border before her parents were even buried. That was 8 years ago. 8 years of wandering, of offering her healing gift for payment, of never staying long enough to form attachments because attachments meant pain when they inevitably pushed her away. The scream shattered the silence, high-pitched and terrified. A wolf cub. Every instinct screamed at Isla to keep walking. Wolf cubs meant protective parents. Protective parents meant territorial wolves who wouldn't appreciate strangers near their young. But the cry came again, weaker, followed by a whimper that pierced her heart. She was moving before she could stop herself. Her healing sense, the magical awareness that let her feel injuries in living things, suddenly flared to life. Pain. So much pain. Isla burst through the brambles and froze. The wolf cub was tiny, maybe 4 months old, with pure silver fur matted with blood. It dragged itself across the forest floor, one hind leg twisted wrong, deep gashes across its back still bleeding freely. And standing between the cub and escape were 3 rogues in wolf form, scarred, mangy, eyes gleaming with malicious intent. This wasn't a hunt. This was torture. They were playing with it. "Hey!" Isla shouted before her brain could stop her mouth. "Get away from it!" The 3 rogues turned. She saw the moment they registered what she was. A lone Omega, unarmed, defenseless. One shifted to human form, a tall man with a scarred face and dead eyes. "Well, well," he said, voice rough. "First we get to kill the little prince, then the moon goddess sends us a pretty Omega to play with." He sneered. "Though you're a strange-looking thing, like a corpse that forgot to die." Prince? Isla's mind raced. Silver fur being hunted by rogues who specifically wanted to kill it. This wasn't just any cub. This was someone important. "I don't know what you're talking about," Isla said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Leave that cub alone and get out of here." The rogue laughed. The other 2 shifted to human form, flanking her. "Or what? You gonna fight us, ghost girl? You don't even have a pack. You're nobody. And nobody's gonna care when we're done with you." He was right. She was nobody. No pack would avenge her. No one would know she was gone. But that cub, that tiny silver wolf bleeding on the ground, was somebody. And Isla was tired of being nobody. Tired of walking past suffering because getting involved was dangerous. Tired of surviving when she'd stopped living years ago. "You're right," she said quietly, reaching into her pack. "I am nobody." She pulled out her father's knife, the only weapon she owned. "Which means I've got nothing to lose." She launched herself at the nearest rogue. The fight was brutal. Isla wasn't a warrior. She'd had basic training from her father, but she was a healer, not a fighter. The rogues were bigger, stronger, trained to kill. But she had surprise. And rage. Years of accumulated fury at a world that treated her like garbage. She got the first rogue in the throat. He went down, gurgling, blood spraying. The second grabbed her from behind, claws raking across her ribs, tearing through cloth and flesh. Isla screamed but drove her elbow into his face, breaking his nose. When he loosened his grip, she spun and stabbed upward, catching him under the chin. He dropped. The third rogue shifted back to wolf form and lunged. Isla tried to dodge but was too slow, too injured. His teeth sank into her shoulder, shaking her like a rag doll. She felt bones crack, felt her knife slip from nerveless fingers. He threw her against a tree. She hit hard, sliding down to the ground. Through blurring vision, she saw him stalking toward the cub, which had been trying to crawl away during the fight. No. Isla's healing sense screamed at her. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, shattered shoulder, deep lacerations, internal bleeding. She was dying. Minutes at best. But her gift wasn't just for sensing injuries. It was for healing them. And healing was just moving life energy from one place to another. She'd been taught to be careful, to never push too hard, to never drain herself dangerously low. She'd never been taught what happened if you gave everything. Isla reached deep inside herself, past the reservoir she normally used, past the safety limits her parents had drilled into her, down to the very core of her life force. And she pulled. Power flooded through her, raw and primal and agonizing. Life Weaver, a distant part of her mind whispered. The ancient gift. The forbidden one. She threw all of it at the rogue. Not to heal, to drain. Life energy could flow both ways. She ripped the vitality from his body, watching as he collapsed mid-step, aging decades in seconds, his fur going gray and patchy before he stopped breathing. The backlash hit her like a physical blow. She crawled toward the cub, every movement sending fresh agony through her body. The little wolf watched her with frightened, blue eyes. Up close she could see he was beautiful. Silver fur pristine, except where blood marred it. Royal bloodlines always bred true. Hey, sweetheart, Isla whispered, reaching out to stroke his head. You're safe now. The cub whined and tried to lick her hand. His injuries were severe, but not immediately fatal like hers. If she used her gift to heal him, she'd have nothing left for herself. She'd die. But if she didn't heal him, he might not make it until help arrived. Really, it wasn't even a choice. This is gonna feel weird, she told him, placing both hands on his small body. But it'll help. I promise. Isla pulled from herself, from her own life force, the energy keeping her heart beating and lungs working. She poured everything into the cub. Felt his broken legs straighten and knit. Felt the gashes close and seal. Felt his strength returning, his pain fading. She gave and gave until there was nothing left. The world went dark around the edges. Her heart slowed. Her breathing stopped. The cub was healed. Completely, perfectly healed. He nuzzled her face, whining in distress. It's okay, Isla slurred, words barely audible. You're gonna be fine. Someone will find you. Someone important. Her eyes closed. This was a good death, she thought. Better than dying alone and unmourned. At least she'd saved someone. At least her last act had mattered. The darkness swallowed her whole. She didn't see the cub throw back his head and howl, a sound far too powerful for something so small. She didn't see the way the howl rippled through the forest, carrying a frequency only certain bloodlines could hear, and she didn't see the wolves that began to arrive. First came the wild ones, silver wolves from deep in the ancient forest, drawn by the pulse of Lifeweaver magic. They emerged slowly, forming a circle around the fallen woman and the cub. They could sense what she was, what she'd done. This was a Lifeweaver, the first in 300 years, and she'd used her gift to save a child. That made her sacred, worth protecting. More wolves came, these larger, with pristine silver fur marking them as royal guard. And at the center, running faster than the rest, came the largest wolf Isla never got to see. Rowan, Alpha King of the Frostwood Territories, burst into the clearing and shifted to human form mid-stride. His hair was pale gold, almost silver in the moonlight. His eyes were the same brilliant blue as the cub's. He took in the scene with a single glance. 3 dead rogues, 1 tiny silver cub howling over a woman's body, and that woman lying in a pool of blood, so pale she looked like a ghost. No, not a ghost. She was breathing. Barely. Rowan's wolf was screaming at him, clawing at his consciousness with urgency he'd never felt before. Mate, mate, mate. The bond hit him like lightning, powerful, undeniable, terrifying. This woman, this stranger who'd somehow ended up in the forest with his son, was his true mate. His son. Ash, Rowan's. Heart had been in his throat for 3 hours, ever since the ambush had resulted in Ash being taken. He'd tracked them for miles, praying he'd be fast enough. He'd expected to find his son dead or dying. He'd expected to kill the rogues himself, slowly and painfully. He hadn't expected to find them already dead, killed by an Omega who looked like she'd barely survived the fight. No, not survived. She hadn't survived. She was dying right now. "Healers!" Rowan roared, dropping to his knees beside her, hands hovering, afraid to touch and cause more damage. "Now!" 2 wolves from his guard shifted and ran. Ash, his brave, foolish, beloved son, crawled into Rowan's lap and whined, pawing at his father's chest. Rowan wrapped one arm around his cub, feeling overwhelming relief. But his eyes never left the woman. She looked so young, mid-20s maybe, with features that would have been beautiful if they weren't slack with unconsciousness and gray with blood loss. But it was her hands that caught his attention. They rested on Ash's fur, even in unconsciousness, as if she'd been petting him when she collapsed. And there was a faint glow around those hands, a shimmer of magic Rowan recognized from ancient texts. "Lifeweaver," he breathed. "You're a Lifeweaver." That explained everything. Why Ash was perfectly healthy, despite the blood matting his fur. Why this woman was dying. She'd used the forbidden gift, the one that let you transfer life force itself. She'd saved Ash by giving him her own vitality. She'd been willing to die for a cub she didn't know, for his son, his heir, and she was his mate. Rowan made a decision right then, kneeling in blood-soaked dirt with his son in his arms and his dying mate at his feet. She'd saved the most precious thing in his world. She'd given everything to protect a child she'd never met. He would move heaven and earth to save her in return. The healers arrived within minutes, 3 of them, the best Rowan had. They took one look at the woman and their faces went grim. "Your Majesty," the head healer, an older woman named Mira, said carefully. "I don't know if you will save her," Rowan said, and there was no room for argument. "I don't care what it takes. She saved my son. She's a Lifeweaver. And she's my mate. You will not let her die." Mira's eyes widened at that declaration, but she nodded and got to work. The 3 healers worked frantically, hands glowing with magic as they stabilized the worst injuries. Internal bleeding first, then the punctured lung, then the broken bones. 20 minutes of intense, exhausting work. Finally, Mira sat back, wiping her forehead. "She's stable. Barely. She'll need constant care for the next week, possibly longer. But she should survive." The relief that flooded through Rowan was almost painful. "Get a stretcher. We're taking her to the palace immediately." Ash whined and refused to move from where he was curled against the woman's side. He'd shifted at some point, a 3-year-old boy with pale blonde hair and his mother's blue eyes, clinging to the woman's arm, tears streaming. "Papa, don't let her die," he sobbed. "She saved me. The bad men were hurting me, and she made them stop. Don't let her die." Rowan's heart clenched. Ash had barely spoken since his mother's death in childbirth 3 years ago. He'd been withdrawing. becoming quieter, more fearful. And now here he was, speaking in full sentences, begging for a stranger's life. "She's not going to die," Rowan promised, scooping his son into his arms. "I swear it. And when she wakes up, you can thank her yourself." The journey to the palace took 4 days. They moved slowly to avoid jostling her, stopped frequently so the healers could reinforce their work. Rowan barely slept, spending most of his time watching over her, one hand holding his son, and the other near enough to feel her weak heartbeat through their bond. He learned everything about her during those 4 days. Her name was Isla, according to papers in her pack. A traveling healer with no pack affiliation. 24 years old. Born to Marcus and Elena, both deceased. No living family. She owned almost nothing. Healing supplies, spare clothes, her father's knife still sticky with rogue blood, and a small journal of healing recipes. She'd been alone since she was 16. 8 years of wandering, facing prejudice because of her unusual appearance. Not anymore. She had a home now, whether she wanted it or not. She had a mate and a cub who'd imprinted on her so hard that Ash threw screaming fits whenever they tried to separate him from her. When they reached the palace, Rowan had her installed in a suite next to his own. The healers set up rotations to watch her constantly. Ash refused to leave her side, sleeping in a small bed next to hers, holding her hand even in sleep. It took 7 days for her to wake up. 7 days of watching her breathe, of feeling the mate bond slowly strengthen as her body healed, of his son talking to her unconscious form about everything and nothing. On the 7th day, just after dawn, her eyes opened. Rowan was there. He was always there. He watched as she blinked slowly, confused and unfocused. She tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain, falling back against the pillows. "Easy," Rowan said softly, moving to her side. "You're safe. You're in the palace. You've been unconscious for 7 days. Isla's eyes focused on him. He saw recognition dawn, understanding of who exactly she was talking to, but there was no fear, just exhaustion and confusion. "The cub," she croaked, voice rough from disuse. "Is he—" "He's fine, thanks to you. He's right here, actually." Rowan gestured to the small bed where Ash was curled up, still holding her hand. "He hasn't left your side." Isla's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I died. I gave him everything." "You almost did die," Rowan said honestly. "You used the Lifeweaver gift. You gave my son your own life force. Do you understand how rare that is? How dangerous?" "Lifeweaver?" Isla's eyes widened. "But that's supposed to be extinct." "You awakened it," Rowan explained, "in a moment of pure sacrifice. That's how the gift works. It only manifests in those with the purest intentions." He paused. "My name is Rowan. I'm Alpha King of the Frostwood Territories. And the cub you saved is my son, Ash. My only child. The heir to my throne." The implications hit her all at once. Her eyes closed, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I didn't know. He was so small and they were going to kill him." "I know," Rowan said softly. "That's what makes you extraordinary. You saw a child in danger and you didn't hesitate." He hesitated, then added, "There's something else. When I found you, I felt the bond. The mate bond. You're my true mate, Isla." Her eyes flew open, shock written across her features. "That's not possible. I'm nobody. I don't even have a pack. The moon goddess paired you with me because you're exactly what I need," Rowan interrupted. "Someone brave enough to fight impossible odds. Someone selfless enough to die for a stranger's child." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her free hand. "I'm not asking you to accept it right away. I know this is overwhelming, but you're safe here. You have a place here." As if summoned, Ash stirred and opened his eyes. When he saw Isla was awake, his whole face lit up. "You're awake! Papa, she's awake! I told you!" He scrambled onto the bed carefully and threw his small arms around her neck. "Thank you for saving me. The bad men were scary, and you made them go away. You're so brave. Will you stay? Please stay." Isla looked overwhelmed, but Rowan saw something soft and warm bloom in her eyes. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently, awkwardly patting his back. "I'm glad you're okay." "Nothing hurts," Ash confirmed. "You fixed me all up. Papa says you gave me your life to make me better. That means you're my hero, and you're pretty like snow. I like snow." Despite everything, Isla laughed, weak and shaky, but genuine. "I like snow too," she said softly. Over the following weeks, Isla recovered slowly. Rowan made sure she had everything she needed, the best food, comfortable clothes, peace and quiet. But more than anything, he gave her space. He didn't push the mate bond, didn't demand anything, just let her heal and adjust. Ash, however, had no concept of personal space. He was attached to Isla from the moment she could get out of bed. Followed her everywhere, chattering about his toys and lessons and everything his 3-year-old brain could think of. At first, Isla seemed unsure how to handle him, awkward with the affection and attention. But slowly, Rowan watched her defenses crumble. Watched her start to smile when Ash came running. Watched her automatically reach for him when he stumbled. Watched her become the mother Ash had never had. Not because the bond demanded it, but because she genuinely cared. The Lifeweaver gift was another matter. Isla was terrified of it, afraid to use it, afraid of what it might do. Rowan brought in scholars, ancient texts, anyone with information. They learned together that Lifeweaver wasn't just about transferring vitality. It was about balance, understanding the flow of life energy in all living things. With training, Isla learned to heal without draining herself dangerously, to sense illness before it manifested, to strengthen someone's life force without taking from her own. But the real breakthrough came when she discovered she could sense emotional wounds as well as physical ones, could help heal trauma, ease anxiety, soothe nightmares. It was that aspect that finally helped Ash process his mother's death, helped him understand it was okay to love someone new. 4 months after waking in the palace, Rowan found Isla in the gardens with Ash. They were making flower crowns, Ash's small hands clumsy but determined as Isla patiently showed him how to weave stems together. "For you, Papa," Ash announced, holding up a lopsided crown of daisies. "We made you pretty." Rowan bent down so his son could place it on his head, earning a delighted giggle. "Very pretty, thank you. Did you make one for Isla too?" "She made her own 'cause she's a big girl." Isla smiled, her own crown sitting crookedly on her silver hair. She looked so different from the dying woman in the forest, healthy now, with color in her cheeks and light in her eyes. Happy. "Ash, why don't you go show your crown to Healer Mira?" Rowan suggested. "Okay." Ash bounced up and ran toward the palace. Rowan sat beside Isla on the bench, close but not touching, always respecting her boundaries. "He loves you," he said quietly. "Not because of what you did, but because you're patient and kind, and you make him feel safe." Isla looked down at her flower crown. "I love him too. I never thought about having children. But Ash, he's special. Being with him makes me feel like maybe I'm not just a wanderer anymore." "You could be his mother," Rowan said softly, "if you wanted. He needs one, and I think you need him just as much." "I'm not his mother," Isla said, but there was no conviction. "You're the woman who's raised him these past 4 months," Rowan said. "The one who kisses his bruises and reads him stories. The one he runs to when he has nightmares. Biology doesn't make someone a mother. Love does." Isla's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared. What if I'm not good enough?" "You saved his life once," Rowan said gently. "Now you're saving it every day just by being here, showing him he's worthy of love." He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "And you have me. We can figure this out together. Be his parents together. If you'll let us." Isla looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. "The mate bond," she said hesitantly. "I can feel it now, pulling at me." "I've felt it since the moment I saw you," Rowan admitted. "But I want to be clear. I don't want you to feel pressured. If we do this, I want it to be because you choose me. Not because fate demands it, but because you wake up every day and decide you want to be with me." "That's a lot of pressure," Isla said, smiling slightly. "What if I decide I don't want to be with you?" "Then I'll respect your choice," Rowan said seriously. "You'll still have a place here. The mate bond doesn't give me ownership of you. It's a gift, not a chain. And gifts can be declined." Isla studied his face, wonder in her voice. "You mean that? You'd really let me go?" "I'd let you go," Rowan confirmed. "But I'd really prefer if you stayed. And I'd really prefer if eventually you'd consider accepting the bond, because I think we could be amazing together." "I've never been anyone's equal," Isla said quietly. "I've always been the weird one, the ghost girl. People tolerate me because I'm useful." "I value you," Rowan said firmly. "Not because you're useful, not because you saved my son, but because you're smart and strong and kind, even after the world gave you every reason not to be. Because you make my son laugh. Because when I look at you, I see my future." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Take your time. There's no rush. But know that I'm here, waiting, hoping, ready whenever you're ready." Isla didn't answer with words. Instead, she leaned forward and rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture of trust that meant more than any declaration. They sat like that for a long time, flower crowns on their heads and fingers entwined, while Ash's laughter drifted across the garden. It took another month before Isla came to Rowan's study one evening, nervous but determined. "I've decided," she said, "about the bond, about us." Rowan's heart pounded, but he kept his expression calm. "And?" "I want to try," Isla said. "Not because fate says we should, but because you've been patient. Because you gave me space to heal and time to think. Because you let me fall in love with your son without expecting anything in return. Because when I imagine my future now, you're in it. Both of you." Relief and joy flooded through Rowan so intensely he could barely breathe. "You're sure? You can still—" Isla stepped forward and kissed him, cutting off his rambling. It was soft and tentative, their first kiss, and it made the mate bond flare so brightly between them that they both gasped. When they pulled apart, Isla smiled. "I'm sure. I want this. I want you. I want to be Ash's mother and your mate and the Luna of this pack. I want to stop running and start living. I want a family." "Then you have one," Rowan said, pulling her close. "You have us for as long as you'll have us." The mating ceremony was held under the full moon a week later, with Ash serving as ring-bearer and nearly dropping the banns twice. The entire pack attended, along with representatives from neighboring territories. But the most unusual guests were the silver wolves that emerged from the forest, wild ones who'd never been seen near the palace before. They formed a circle around the ceremony, a protective honor guard for the Lifeweaver. When Rowan marked Isla, claiming her as his mate and Luna, the bond settled into place perfectly. Not a chain binding her against her will, but a choice they'd both made freely. A partnership built on respect and trust and love. Ash cheered louder than anyone, then demanded to know if this meant Isla was officially his mother now. "Yes," Isla said, kneeling to hug him. "If you want me to be." I want. Ash threw his arms around her neck. "Best mother ever, even better than flower crowns." Years later, when Ash was older and starting his training as heir, he'd ask his mother about the day she saved him. Isla would smile and pull him close. "You weren't a stranger," she'd tell him. "The moment I saw you hurt and scared, you became mine to protect. That's what family does. We protect each other. And you gave me the greatest gift in return. You gave me a reason to stop running and start living. You gave me a home." And Ash, who'd grow up to be a strong and compassionate leader, would remember those words, would build his rule on the principle his mother taught him. That strength isn't measured by power, but by sacrifice. That the greatest leaders protect the weakest among them. That family isn't always blood, but it's always a choice. The Life Weaver gift would pass down through the royal line, awakening in Ash's children generations later. And the story of the ghost girl who saved a prince and became a queen would be told and retold, a legend of sacrifice and love that reminded all wolves that the moon goddess rewards those with pure hearts.